Okay, so now I'll be moving on to section C, the non-narrative passage. So the non-narrative passage actually is unlike the narrative passage. So the narrative passage, section B, refers to personal recounts. Section C will be everything else, which can be include information reports, expositions, factual recounts, explanations, procedures, etc. Okay, so here's just a overview of the different types of non-narrative passages that you may be tested on. Okay, so information reports. The main aim will be to present information, okay, about a particular topic, right? And information basically will be in the form of facts and details, right? Exposition will be to basically is persuasive in nature. Okay, so it is trying to persuade the reader to agree with the viewpoint of the writer, right? And the writer will state his opinion and provide support for his opinion. Okay, so next will be the factual recount. Factual recount is basically it's just telling you what happened. Okay, what has happened. Okay, so it's a past event, and so a lot of it will be A followed by B followed by C and then finally D. So it is mostly it just tells you, okay, how the sequence of events have unfolded. Explanation will be to sort of explain, okay, a phenomenon. All right, so it's basically just telling you why, okay, you observe a certain phenomenon or why something is happening in the world. Okay, and procedures mainly is to sort of teach you how to actually do something. Okay, so there will be a sequence of steps that the writer will explain and tell you how to actually follow through this sequence of steps. However, it's important to note that this is just some broad categories, and most texts usually they feature several types of text. Okay, so for example, in an expository text such as a forum letter, okay, because it is in the nature of the writer, okay, writing about his own personal experience, okay, within a letter, okay, and by using his experience, okay, he's trying to bring a certain opinion or a certain point across to the reader and to persuade the reader to agree with him. So it can take the form of, okay, two types of text. Okay, so it could be it could include a factual recount, and it can also be an expository text. So this passage is a non-narrative text. Okay, so therefore, okay, most of the questions, okay, will just simply require you to sort of follow a certain line of reasoning. Okay, so it's mainly focused on it's more logical. Okay, and you just have to follow and understand and follow the writer's reasoning. Okay, and in doing so, you will be required to explain, okay, why he has this line of reasoning, and to make some justifications. Okay, so sometimes, so a lot of it will be logical. Okay, logical deduction. So a lot of times it may be inferential as well. Okay, you may need to deduce, okay, the answer, okay, by the making of assumptions. Okay, and yeah, most of it will be inferential and evaluative. Okay, very little kind of literal type of questions. So here are some examples of types of questions, okay, and the skills that are required, okay, to answer them. So inferential will be, for example, okay, you are required to, okay, sort of explain, okay, how has sort of our understanding of this issue changed over the years. Okay, so here we need to sort of identify, okay, the main ideas, okay, in each of the paragraphs, okay, and we need to sort of link them together and say how has it changed, okay, how has, for example, the writer's perspective or the general perspective regarding this issue has evolved, okay, over the years, okay, and so you need to, in this particular question, okay, you are supposed to identify developments, okay, in the way it is understood. So the focus is on how it has developed, okay, but the skill mainly will be, number one, you need to locate the main ideas, okay, and number two, you need to see a certain pattern, okay, and through that pattern, okay, make an inference of how it has changed over the years, right? Next will be deductions and drawing conclusions, okay. So for example, explain how these initiatives will improve road safety, okay, and explain why previous initiatives have not been successful, okay. So you need to be able to, okay, explain, okay. So because you are required to explain, okay, you need to make deductions, okay, and draw conclusions, right? So basically, there will be certain ideas that are given to you within the text, okay, but there will also be your own knowledge regarding the subject matter, right? So because you need to apply your own knowledge, okay, together with the ideas within the text, okay, you are, in order to get the answer, okay, you are actually sort of making a deduction and having to draw a conclusion, right? So for example, in the question, how do these initiatives, okay, actually improve road safety, okay, so you need to look at the passage and identify what are these initiatives, okay, and a lot of the time, okay, you need to use your own knowledge and experience to sort of explain how come it will actually improve, okay, road safety or promote road safety, okay. Sometimes it may be given a passage, but usually it will not be given, and you will have to make a deduction, right? And a lot of times, for example, in this next question, okay, why previous initiatives have not been successful? So you need to identify what are these previous initiatives that have been talked about in the passage, okay, and you need to explain, okay, using some ideas given in the passage as well as your own knowledge and experience, okay, explain why they have not been successful, right? Or sometimes you need to deduce, okay, why they have not been successful, okay, based on your own knowledge of the topic. Next, justifying point of view, okay. So for example, how would Ahmad explain his position? Okay, so point of view will be what is his position with regards to this subject matter, okay, and so a lot of times this type of question, they'll involve two sort of characters, okay. These characters are fictional, so it can be, usually it's a boy and a girl, so Ahmad and Anna. So Ahmad will make a statement, Anna will also make a statement, but a contrasting statement to that of Ahmad, and you are required to identify, okay, supporting details regarding the passage, okay, that will help to justify why Ahmad is thinking this way, and you also have to do the same to justify why Anna could be thinking this way as well. Okay, so you are trying to justify their point of view. Why is it possible that Ahmad could be thinking this way, and why is it possible that Anna could have this contrasting point of view, right? So yeah, that's usually the last question, okay, in section C. Okay, so that's all for the comprehension type of questions, okay, in section C. Okay, so now we'll move on to the summary component. So summary takes up actually a lot of marks, okay, 15 marks. Okay, so just some key pointers to note. Okay, summary writing, okay, actually tests you on precision, okay, whereby you have to be very precise in identifying what is relevant to answering the question, okay. So you can't just include any details that are sort of relevant but are not directly relevant. So it needs to be on point in answering the question, right? It can't be sort of relevant and you just include it anyway, right? The reason is because there's just not enough words for you to be able to do that, right? So you need to understand the question, what are the requirements of the question, and just focus your answer on answering that question, okay? So there's the part on content, okay, and there's the part on language as well. Language basically just means your style of writing, okay, which is the other significant portion. Okay, 8 marks and 7 marks. Okay, so 8 marks goes to content, 7 marks goes to language. Okay, so you have to write in the way that brings the points, the relevant points across accurately and concisely. Okay, so they have to be concise in the sense you cannot include unnecessary details, okay, that are not relevant to answering the question, and they have to be accurate in that the language and the words that you use, okay, and the way you structure the sentences and the way you arrange the points, the flow of the entire summary, it has to be accurate in bringing, okay, the actual meaning in the passage across. So the good thing is that the summary writing is literal, meaning that all you have to do is just get the answers directly from the passage, right? And they also clearly indicates the paragraphs where the answers are to be found. So they'll tell you paragraphs 11 to 14 maybe, okay, and you just have to focus your attention on those paragraphs, okay, in getting the answer. So here is just a summary. It must be brief and it must be clear. Okay, and it must be on the main ideas. Okay, you do not need to put in the supporting details. Okay, so just have to identify the main ideas in the paragraphs. Okay, and sort of write them in a way that flows coherently. So you need to have a strong understanding of the passage, right, in order to be able to identify the main ideas, okay, within the paragraphs and what is the main point that the writer is trying to bring across. Okay. So contents are only awarded for relevant points. Okay, and relevant points meaning that they actually answer the question. Okay, so 7 will be awarded to language. Okay, language meaning how well are you able to paraphrase. Okay, paraphrase meaning you have to sometimes substitute words, or in rare cases you have to rephrase the entire sentence. Okay, and also grammar. Okay, of course, grammar, okay, and it's mainly testing you on accuracy. So sometimes you may use another word that sort of does not mean the same or quite the same, or has a different connotation as the original words that's used. So it is inaccurate and you will be marked down for language. So here's a brief description of how do they actually award the marks. Okay, so you'll be awarded 7 marks for language if you can paraphrase everything, okay, the keywords mainly, okay, and paraphrase meaning that you do not lift, you do not copy directly, right? Of course, once in a while they will give you an allowance, okay, if for example there are certain words or phrases that have technical meanings, if for example an illness, for example, okay, fever, it has a technical meaning, you can't replace fever with some kind of other word because you will just lose its technical meaning. You can just leave it as that, okay. So mainly is you have to show accurate use of alternative words and phrases. So 5 to 6, if there's an attempt, okay, and it's free from grammatical error, so you actually score pretty high still, okay, if you can sort of there's some allowance in that. If it's a minor grammatical error, okay, you will still be able to score decently for language, okay, as long as it's just not something that's very glaring, okay, you will do well. So grammatically wise, you do well, and although you may lose some marks in terms of the paraphrasing, okay, and the accuracy of the language, you will still be able to score quite high for language. right? But then of course there must be a clear attempt to paraphrase, right? You have to replace it with another word. So even though the word is not accurate, but it has to be a different word that's used, right, from the original. So 3 to 4 is some attempts, but and there's actually a lot of lifting, okay, and there is quite obvious grammatical errors, okay, and the attempts to paraphrase are very unsuccessful, okay. 1 to 2 is of course chunks of phrases are lifted from the passage, and you are just using 1 or 2 word substitutions, okay, to paraphrase, okay. There is no reorganization of the points to allow the passage to flow better, okay. You're just substituting 1 or 2 words here and there, okay, and of course if there's serious grammatical errors, right. So 0 marks is when you actually just blindly copy just to fill up the words, okay, and you do not actually understand the passage and the question, and a lot of it is irrelevant, okay, and of course there will be also serious errors such that the examiner cannot understand what you're writing, so you'll score 0. So generally, as you can see, if you actually take paraphrasing seriously and the grammar seriously, make an effort to check and make sure that it's grammatically free from errors, okay, and you make some attempt to replace the words and phrases and to reorganize the sentence structure such that they flow well and is easily readable, you will tend to get about 5 or 6, okay. So that's for language. Yeah, so here are just some tips to write a good summary. Okay, read the instructions carefully. Okay, usually you have to begin with the words given. Okay, so you need to begin with the words given. You can't replace the first few words with your own. Okay. Next will be after you read the question once. Okay, you need to bracket the relevant paragraphs. Okay, so the question will be very specific in saying which paragraphs to which paragraphs you are supposed to summarize, so you just bracket the paragraphs, right? Next would be you need to also, okay, look at the keywords in the question, okay, because the question is very focused. Okay, they will just tell you to summarize something, a particular theme, a particular idea, or a particular aspect of the passage. Okay, so you need to pick up the keywords that tell you what to summarize, okay, and you really need to keep that in mind, okay, as you're going through the paragraphs to pick out the relevant points. You need to keep thinking to yourself, this is the keyword, is this point relevant to that keyword? The next sentence, is this phrase or this part of the sentence relevant to that keyword? Okay, you need to always, in your mind, remind yourself of what the relevant keyword is in the question. So next will be you should actually just go into the passage and underline points that are actually relevant to the question, to answering the question, okay, and of course you need in doing this you are omitting the irrelevant points, okay. So after you have underlined the points, okay, there may, within these underlined points, there may be redundant words or phrases within the underlined points, so you also have to omit all these unnecessary details, okay. Next will be you have to try to use your own words, okay, to paraphrase the keywords within the underlined points, okay. Point 5 and point 6 is about the same, alright. It's just that for 4 and 5, what the difference is, okay, for 5 and 6, the difference is that for 5, if you can read the passage and straight away see that, okay, I can just easily replace this with another word, so you do that. For 6 will be, if it's not so straightforward, you need to look at how the different sentences flow together in your draft before you can actually find a suitable word to substitute it. Then what you do is you just circle it and do the paraphrasing later, right, in your second draft. So after you have written your first draft, you need to, of course, check for grammatical errors, okay. So grammatical errors, and if there will definitely be some sentences that appear to be, that do not gel well with the one before and after. Okay, so because it's clumsily structured, okay, you need to reorganize them. Okay, so reorganize them such that they are coherent. Okay, so then you after you have done all this, you will have a final draft and just make a final check and then count the number of words. Okay, usually you really have to spend about 5 to 10 minutes shortening the sentences. Okay, it's quite difficult to do because you have to ensure that you only remove ancillary words, which are words that they are not key points, okay, that can actually form part of the content marks. So you have to be very careful when you choose how to shorten the sentences, right, to not distort the meaning. So write the number of words at the bottom right hand corner. Okay, so you should be writing in continuous prose, meaning complete sentences, okay, and in one paragraph. Okay, yeah, and you are strictly not to exceed the word limit. Okay, any words that are above the word limit will not be taken into consideration. So just some examples of summary questions. Okay, so I cannot stress enough on this point. Okay, this is very important. Okay, which is that you really need to read and analyze the question. Okay, so you'll only be testing you on one, sometimes two aspects of the text. Okay, so it can be aspects or themes, they mean the same thing. Okay, so you need to identify what are these one or two things that to focus on, right, based on the question. So for example, okay, example 1, the ways in which man has contributed to the degradation of the environment. Right, so what you do in example 1 will be you have to identify the ways, okay, in which the man has contributed to environmental degradation. Okay, so you have to just zoom in on the ways that they have done so. Right, you do not need to explain the reason why man has done all these environmentally harming actions. Okay, but you just need to focus on what did they do. Okay, what are the ways that they have done this. Okay, so for example, in example 2, okay, so this is just one theme of focus, right, because it's just the ways. Next will be you need to summarize the reasons for acts of terrorism. Okay, reasons for terrorism and what the governments have done. What have they done? Okay, so what meaning actions taken by the government, right? So here there are two things that you have to actually summarize. They are relevant. Okay, one is you actually have to look at the reasons. Okay, why do terrorists do what they do? And secondly is what governments have done. So you do not have to explain the reasons for the governments doing what they do. You just have to talk about what the governments have done. Okay, so it's very important for you to know that the reasons applies to acts of terrorism, and the what have done is referring only to the counter actions done by performed by the government. Okay. Next, for part 3, okay, summarize the benefits of exercise and the dangers of overdoing it. So once again, there are two tips. Okay, firstly will be we have to talk about the benefits. What are the benefits? And next will be the dangers. So pros and cons of exercise, right? But dangers is restricted to dangers of overdoing it. Okay, so if it's dangers that are unrelated to overdoing exercise, you don't have to include them. Okay, so hopefully you have a clearer idea of how to analyze the summary questions. Okay, because it's very important that you do so. So here is just a technique that will make writing your draft easier. Okay, so you have to write your draft in a grid. Okay, what it does is to keep track of the number of words. Okay, so for example, if I have a grid whereby I have 10 vertical columns, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 columns. Okay, if I can fill up 8 rows, 7, 8. Okay, that will give me 8 times 10, which is 80 words, right? So each word will be filled into one box, okay? And I can easily see from this grid, okay, whether I've exceeded the word limit. Okay, so you do not include the words that are given in the question, right? So the helping words, which is usually the question will give you the first few words, okay, to help you begin your summary, and usually these words will not be included in the word count, so you don't have to write them within the box, okay? So of course, don't present your final answer with the grids, alright? So just on the final note, let's just quickly read through this example. Okay, so summarize the ways in which the elderly can. Okay, so in this case, it's quite clear that the whole passage is regarding elderly. So you don't really have to. Elderly is not exactly a keyword. So the main keyword it will be ways. The ways that they can age successfully, right? So elderly, usually the whole passage will be talking about them aging, okay, and successfully, right? So sometimes they may be saying that aging is bad, but sometimes they're saying that aging can be good as well. So you are just focusing on how can aging be good, okay, and the ways in which that can be achieved, right? So paragraph 6 to 9 only, okay, and these are the helping words that they have given you to begin the summary, okay. So elderly today can age successfully because of work and healthy engagement in activities. Okay, if products and services are made available for them, it will give them new meaning. Okay, facilities for independent living will make life easier. Modifying infrastructure and homes will make them less dependent on others and ensure their self-sufficiency. Okay, furthermore, information technology can be harnessed to improve their quality of life. In addition, regular screening for early detection of illnesses and programs designed to build tenacity will help prevent dejection and misery. So here everything is focused on the positive aspects of aging, as you can see. Although here, because we have not read the passage, okay, but as you can see, it is of a slightly wider scope, okay. If you actually look at the question, it says the ways in which the elderly can age successfully. So the ways meaning that sometimes we, in our mind, will be thinking that wouldn't ways just include like the elderly taking part in, for example, Tai Chi, for example, and keeping healthy. So the things that they do. But over here, as you can see, you're actually talking about things on a bigger picture. Okay, you are talking about facilities for independent living. Okay, which is usually provided for by either the government or maybe sometimes by businesses. Okay, who see the silver industry. Silver industry is basically an industry that's catered to meeting the needs of elderly people. Okay, so they may actually provide such facilities. Okay, so why do we include it in this question is because in order for the elderly to age successfully, okay, in order for them to adopt certain to do certain things, okay, in order to age successfully, this is what they need as well. Okay, so for example, they do need facilities for independent living, okay, in order for them to live independently, right? And by living independently, they will be able to age successfully. Okay, so I repeat, in order to age successfully, they have to be independent. Okay, that will make them feel better about themselves. So how do they actually be independent? They actually require a lot of facilities for independent living. So the points are actually correlated and you cannot separate them from one another. So therefore, you also include facilities for independent living as by having a lot of them and enough of them for all of the elderly. Okay, that will be one way in which you can help the elderly to age successfully. So that's all for the overview of paper 2. Okay, thank you for listening.